They say if someone accuses you loudly enough, people stop asking whether it's possible. Now imagine this. You are lying in a hospital bed. Your spine is held together with metal. You haven't walked on your own in months. And then a legal notice arrives. Your ex-husband is suing you. For stalking him across multiple cities. With dates, with witnesses, with photographs. According to the lawsuit, you followed him to his favorite cafe, his therapy clinic, even places he went to relax. There's just one problem. On every single date listed, you were being monitored 24 hours a day inside a medical facility, barely able to sit up without help. Doctors say you couldn't walk. Security cameras say you never left. Nursing logs record every hour of your day. So how does someone prove you were there when you physically couldn't be anywhere? And more importantly, who would go to this much trouble to make you look guilty at the exact moment you were least able to defend yourself? I laughed when the courier handed me the legal envelope. Not because anything was funny, but because I hadn't stood up on my own in nearly 4 months. I actually laughed when the courier handed me the legal envelope. Not because it was funny, but because I hadn't stood up on my own in nearly 4 months. I was lying flat in a rehabilitation ward, a steel brace wrapped around my torso, tubes still running into my arm. My spine had been reconstructed with screws and plates, and every movement felt like fire. My hands shook as I opened the documents. Notice of civil action. Allegations, harassment, surveillance, stalking. Filed by my ex-husband. According to the paperwork, I had been following him across multiple cities, showing up outside his office, appearing near his physical therapy clinic, being spotted near Lake House owned by his brother. The dates were listed carefully, painstakingly. April through July. The same months I'd been confined to a hospital bed after spinal reconstruction surgery. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 61 years old. And until that moment, I truly believed the worst part of my life was already behind me. 3 years earlier, my logistics consulting firm collapsed when a multinational client defaulted on nearly $1 million in contracts. The fallout was brutal. Lawsuits, layoffs, the loss of our home, and eventually, the end of my 26-year marriage to Daniel. The stress didn't just break my finances, it broke my body. By last winter, I couldn't walk more than a few steps without my legs giving out. Surgeons told me the damage to my spine had reached a point where physical therapy alone wouldn't save me. Surgery was the only option. A long one. A risky one. And recovery meant months of immobility. That's what made the lawsuit so surreal. On every single date Daniel claimed I was following him. I was being monitored around the clock inside a medical facility, barely able to sit up without assistance. My surgeon had been very clear. No stairs for 3 months. No driving for 4. No unsupervised walking at all. The lawsuit arrived in my 17th week of recovery. I called my attorney immediately. Her name is Marissa Klein. She'd handled my bankruptcy case and knew the full story of my divorce, the bitterness, the financial collapse, the resentment Daniel never let go of. When I read her the accusations over the phone, she went silent. Then she said something I didn't expect. Eleanor, this is actually good news. Good news, I said. My ex-husband is accusing me of criminal stalking. Yes, she replied calmly, because you physically could not have done any of this. Hospital records, nurse logs, security footage. You under constant supervision. This should be dismissed quickly. I wanted to believe her. But Marissa hadn't yet seen what else was in the envelope. Daniel had attached photographs, 12 of them. Printed in color. In every photo, there was a woman standing in the background. A woman who looked unsettlingly like me. Same height, similar build, same short, silver streaked hair, even the same rectangular glasses I'd worn for over a decade. In one image, taken outside a cafe near his workplace, the woman was wearing a dark jacket nearly identical to one I owned. They have pictures, I said quietly. Someone who looks exactly like me. Marissa paused. Send them to me. Immediately. She told me to start documenting everything, medical records, visitor logs, timestamps, anything that could prove where I was that night. Sleep was impossible not because of the pain but because of the accusation Daniel, and I had ended badly, yes. He blamed me for the business collapse, for the lifestyle we lost, for the future he felt entitled to, but stalking. That wasn't who I was that had never been who I was I studied the photos again, zooming in on every detail in one image. The woman's face was partially visible from the side the resemblance was strong but something was wrong her posture her shoulders slumped forward. I'd spent months in rehab learning how to stand upright again, to protect my spine this woman stood like someone who hadn't the next morning. I requested my full hospital records it took days, and hundreds of pages of documentation every medication, every nurse check, every hour counted for, and as the evidence piled up, one thing became terrifyingly clear: someone had gone to great lengths to make it look like I was stalking my own ex-husband and whoever it was knew exactly when I was least capable of defending myself. Marissa got back to me 2 days later. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the tension underneath it. Eleanor, she said, on paper, this should be impossible. She'd reviewed every page of my medical file. 411 pages documenting my entire stay. Admission at 5:40 a.m. in early April. A 10-hour spinal reconstruction surgery. Post-op complications that kept me in intensive care longer than expected. Transfer to the recovery unit. And finally, discharge in late July. For weeks, I hadn't been able to walk without a harness, and 2 therapists holding me upright. According to the nursing logs, someone checked on me every 4 hours. Sometimes more. I was never unaccounted for. Then why hasn't his attorney dropped the case? I asked. That's the part that worries me, Marissa replied. Because they're doubling down. She put me on speaker and dialed Daniel's lawyer, a man named Victor Hale. I listened as she laid out our defense, methodically. My client was hospitalized for the entirety of the dates listed in your complaint. We have medical documentation, staff logs, and facility security records proving she was physically incapable of being present in any of the locations you've mentioned. Victor didn't hesitate. We have photographic evidence, he said flatly, and eyewitness statements. Multiple individuals have identified Ms. Brooks near my client on several occasions. Identified someone who looks like her, Marissa corrected. Our position, Victor replied, is that the resemblance is not coincidental. My stomach tightened. Then he added something that made my blood run cold. We also have records of repeated phone calls to my client during that period. Calls placed from Ms. Brooks' personal cell number. I sat up so fast a nurse rushed in. That's impossible, I said. I called him twice. That's it. Both times from my hospital room. Victor chuckled softly. My client received 17 calls between April and July. He chose not to answer any of them. The voicemails were unsettling. Unsettling. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. After the call ended, Marissa didn't speak for a long moment. Eleanor, she said carefully, we need your phone records. Immediately. That afternoon, I requested a full call log from my carrier. While we waited, I started asking the only question that mattered. Who would do this? My business collapse had left behind resentment. Former partners. Contractors who never got paid in full. People who might enjoy watching me fall further. But this wasn't random. This was personal. Then something my daughter had mentioned weeks earlier came back to me. During one of her visits, she'd casually said, Dad's seeing someone new. He met her not long before your surgery. At the time, I hadn't cared. Now, I did. I asked for details. A name. A face. She goes by Laura, my daughter said. Last name, I'm not sure. They met through a hiking group, or something. A hiking group. While I was learning how to stand again. That night, I opened social media for the first time in months and went through Daniel's connections. It didn't take long to find her. Laura Whitman. Mid-50s. Athletic build. short dark hair, photos of mountain trails, lakes, early morning sunrises. I clicked through her profile. And then my hands went cold. In several photos, Laura stood next to Daniel. And standing next to her. I saw it immediately. The height. The facial structure. The same sharp jawline. She didn't look exactly like me. But from a distance. From behind. From a grainy photo taken across a parking lot. Close enough. I sent everything to Marissa. Her reply came minutes later. This is concerning. The next morning, my phone records arrived. 62 pages. I went through them line by line. The 17 calls Victor had mentioned. They weren't there. According to my carrier, I'd called Daniel exactly twice. Both short. Both logged from a tower near the hospital. Nothing else. I called Marissa immediately. They don't exist, I said. Those calls never happened. There was a pause on the line. That means your number was spoofed, she said. Someone had made calls to Daniel, disguising them as if they were coming from me. And suddenly, the pieces started fitting together in the worst possible way. The lookalike. The fake phone calls. The timing, perfectly aligned with my hospitalization. This wasn't a mistake, Marissa said. Someone is trying to frame you. Why? I asked. Her answer was quiet. Because you were the perfect target. Immobilized. Isolated. Unable to follow anyone. Unable to investigate. That's when she suggested something I never thought I'd need. We should bring in a private investigator. And as terrifying as that sounded, something told me this story was far from over. The investigator's name was Caleb Monroe. Late 50s. Former Federal Task Force. The kind of man who spoke slowly and noticed everything. We met in a quiet diner not far from my apartment, my first time out alone since the surgery. I walked stiffly, carefully, like someone relearning gravity. I slid a folder across the table. Inside, the lawsuit. The photographs. My hospital records. Screenshots of Laura Whitman's social media profile. My phone logs. Caleb didn't rush. He examined every photo with a small magnifier, studying angles, lighting, shadows. These weren't accidents, he said finally. Someone wanted clean images. Faces in frame. Enough distance to deny, close enough to accuse. You think they were staged? I think they were planned. That answer sat heavy between us. He asked about Laura. How long she'd been around, where she claimed to live, how she'd met Daniel. I told him what little I knew. Caleb nodded once. I'll start with her. 3 days later, he called me. And what he said made my skin crawl. Laura Whitman doesn't exist. I laughed at first. A sharp, disbelieving sound. I've seen her pictures, I said. She's been out in public with my ex-husband. You've seen a profile, Caleb replied. Created 10 months ago. The main photo is licensed stock imagery. The rest are lifted from at least 4 different accounts. My stomach dropped. So who is she? That's the right question. Caleb had gone further. He'd pulled IP activity tied to the account, cross-referenced login patterns, image metadata, even comment timing. Everything pointed to one thing. A manufactured identity. But that wasn't the worst part. Caleb had contacted a few quiet sources in Daniel's city, people who noticed things, but didn't ask questions. They'd seen Daniel with someone. Just not Laura. There's a woman, Caleb said. Different look. Different build. Goes by another name. Mid-40s. Recently relocated. My chest tightened. What's her real name? He paused. Rachel Moore. The name didn't mean anything to me. But her history did. Rachel Moore had a record. 2 prior harassment investigations in another state. Both quietly settled. No convictions. Restraining orders issued and later expired. She's done this before, Caleb said. Different targets. Different partners. Same pattern. I felt sick. Daniel wasn't dating a harmless hiking enthusiast. He was involved with someone experienced in manipulation. Someone who knew how to watch without being seen. And she doesn't look like me? I asked. Caleb exhaled. Not even close. But she doesn't have to. The photos, he explained, didn't show her. They showed someone else. Someone hired. Someone who could pass for me at a glance. A decoy, he said. Used to plant sightings. Create witnesses. I stared at the table. So she frames me, while dating my ex-husband. In her mind, Caleb replied, you're competition. The past threat. Removing you legally and emotionally secures her position. The logic was twisted. But terrifyingly precise. Marissa advised us not to confront Daniel yet. If Rachel realized we were onto her, she'd vanish. Instead, we did the only thing that made sense. We waited. And we watched. 2 days later, Caleb called again. His voice was different this time. We have movement. He'd followed Rachel from Daniel's apartment to a costume and theatrical supply store on the edge of town. Security footage confirmed it. Rachel entered alone. She left carrying a long garment bag and a small paper sack. Caleb obtained the receipt. Inside the bag. A grey wig. Neutral frame glasses. A padded jacket sized for someone taller. My hands went numb as I listened. She's preparing another appearance, Caleb said. And if she thinks you are still helpless, she'll do it again, I finished. Yes. And this time, we'd be ready. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Neutral ground. A law office downtown. Glass walls. Too much light. Daniel arrived first. He looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. Then she walked in. Rachel Moore. Mid-40s. Dark hair pulled back tight. Confident posture. Alert eyes that scanned the room the moment she entered. She did not look like me. Not even remotely. But when she smiled at Daniel and sat beside him, one thing became painfully clear. This was someone who watched everything. Victor Hale began, laying out Daniel's claims again. Sightings, fear, emotional distress. Marissa responded calmly, page by page. Hospital records. Nursing logs. Rehabilitation timestamps. Security footage of me being wheeled through corridors, while the sightings allegedly happened hours away. Daniel's face drained of color. Rachel didn't react. Not yet. Then Marissa shifted. There's one more issue we need to address, she said. The phone calls. Victor stiffened. Marissa slid the carrier records across the table. According to verified logs, my client placed exactly 2 calls. Both from a medical facility. The remaining calls did not originate from her device. Victor frowned. That's not what my client's records show. Exactly, Marissa said. Which means someone spoofed her number. The room went quiet. Rachel's jaw tightened. Just for a second. I caught it. Marissa continued. We are formally requesting forensic review of all parties involved. Victor turned to Rachel. That won't be necessary. Rachel leaned forward. I'm not the one being accused, she said sharply. No, I said. Everyone looked at me. But you are the one who did it. The words landed hard. Rachel laughed, a short, dismissive sound. This is ridiculous. That's when the door opened. Caleb Monroe stepped inside. He placed a thin folder on the table. Rachel Moore, he said evenly. Also known as Rebecca Lawn. Also known as Laura Whitman. Rachel's face went pale. Inside the folder were photographs. Security stills of her entering the costume shop. Receipts. And one final image. A woman wearing a grey wig and rectangular glasses, adjusting her reflection in a mirror. A near-perfect imitation. Daniel turned toward her slowly. Rachel, what is this? She stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. She reached for her bag. Caleb moved faster. Before she could reach the door, he blocked her path. At that moment, 2 uniformed officers entered the office. Rachel froze. I was protecting him, she snapped, pointing at me. She's obsessed with him. She always has been. I felt my voice stay steady. I couldn't even walk, I said. I was learning how to stand. The officers took her arms. As they led her out, she twisted back toward Daniel. You don't understand, she said urgently. I did this for us. Daniel looked like someone waking from a nightmare. And for the first time since this began, I knew the truth was finally louder than the lie. The full picture didn't come out all at once. It unraveled slowly, over interviews, warrants, and digital records that couldn't lie. Rachel Moore hadn't found Daniel by accident. She'd been watching him long before they ever met. After my business collapse made local headlines, she'd gone digging. Public records, old interviews, social media, divorce filings. She learned our history. She learned our fault lines, and most importantly, she learned about my surgery. That's when the plan took shape. Rachel created Laura Whitman, a personality designed to be harmless, outdoorsy, emotionally safe. Someone Daniel wouldn't question. She joined the same online groups he followed, commented on the same posts, slowly mirrored his interests until their first conversation felt natural. By the time they met in person, she already knew exactly who he needed her to be. But Rachel had done this before. Investigators uncovered 2 prior cases in another state where former partners had been quietly pushed out of someone's life, framed as unstable, obsessive, dangerous. In both cases, she'd never been charged. Because she never touched her victims directly. She used proxies. This time, she went further. Rachel hired someone, a woman close to my height and build, to act as a stand-in. They dressed her carefully. Wig, glasses, neutral clothing similar to mine. The goal wasn't perfection. It was plausibility. She only needed witnesses to believe what they expected to see. Rachel tracked Daniel's routines. The cafe he visited after work, the clinic he attended twice a week, the weekends he spent near the water. Then she placed the decoy nearby, always in the background. Always just far enough away. The photos were sent anonymously to Daniel. I think she's following you, the messages said. Fear did the rest. The phone calls were even easier. Rachel used an online spoofing service, cheap, untraceable at first glance. She left voicemails that sounded concerned, then needy, then unhinged. Never threatening enough to trigger immediate police action, just disturbing enough to convince. By the time Daniel filed the lawsuit, Rachel had already isolated him. He'd stopped responding to my daughter's messages, stopped visiting mutual friends. Exactly what Rachel wanted. What she didn't expect was evidence. Digital systems that recorded everything she assumed no one would ever examine. Cell tower pings, IP logins, security footage, store receipts. Every step she took left a shadow. When police searched her apartment, they found the wall. Photographs of Daniel, printed schedules, notes in careful handwriting. And a second section. My name. My hospital. My recovery timeline. She'd planned around my immobility. She thought being broken meant being powerless. She was wrong. The charges came quickly. Identity fraud, criminal harassment, evidence tampering, and when her prior history surfaced, the case escalated. Rachel was denied bail. Daniel visited me 2 weeks later. He looked shaken. I didn't know, he said. She told me you were dangerous. I nodded. She told you what you were ready to believe? He dropped the lawsuit that afternoon, not because he was ordered to. But because the truth had finally reached him. And as I sat there, still rebuilding my body, still relearning trust, one thing stayed with me: the most convincing lies are the ones built on pieces of the truth. The case didn't end with a courtroom drama. It ended quietly. Rachel Moore remained in custody as investigators connected the dots, not just here, but across state lines. Patterns she thought were buried resurfaced once people started looking closely. She'd built her life on control. And control doesn't survive scrutiny. Daniel officially withdrew the lawsuit the following month. No press, no statements, just a signed document that closed the chapter. He didn't try to justify himself. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply said, I was wrong, and that was enough. Not because it erased the damage, but because it acknowledged it. Physically, I was still healing. Every morning started with careful movement, stretching, slow walks, relearning what my body could handle. 40 minutes at a time now. A year earlier, I couldn't stand without assistance. I began thinking about what came next. Not rebuilding what I lost, but building something different. Maybe mentoring. Maybe teaching. Something that used experience instead of destroying the body that carried it. Daniel, and I don't speak often. Occasional messages. Updates about our daughter. Nothing more. The marriage is over. But the hostility is gone. We survived something neither of us saw coming, even if we were standing on opposite sides of it. What stayed with me most wasn't the fear. It was the lesson. When someone wants to destroy your reputation, they don't need the truth. They only need something that feels believable. Photos without context. Voices without sources. Stories timed to your weakest moment. That's why documentation matters. Records matter. Facts matter. Because feelings can be engineered. But data doesn't lie. Rachel chose me because I was immobilized. Because she believed I wouldn't fight back. What she didn't understand was this. Even when you can't stand, you can still gather evidence. You can still ask questions. You can still refuse to accept a lie as your ending. Technology can be used as a weapon, numbers spoofed, images staged, identities twisted. But it also leaves trails. Timestamps, logs, metadata. In my case, those trails saved me. I'm still rebuilding my life. Still healing. Still learning how to trust the ground beneath my feet again. But my name is clear. The truth is on record. And every step I take now, slow, careful, deliberate, reminds me of something I wish I'd known sooner. Being broken doesn't mean being powerless. Sometimes it just means the fight looks different.